My son died 15 years ago. Yesterday at 3 a.m. there was a knock on the door. He stood on the threshold and said, "Dad, sorry it took so long. I need to tell you the truth." But I personally closed his coffin. I'm glad you're here with me. Please listen to my story till the end and let me know which city you're listening from. That way I can see how far my story has traveled. 15 years. That's how long it had been since I buried my son Michael. 15 years since I stood in that cemetery, watching them lower the casket into the frozen ground while snow fell like ash around us. 15 years since my wife Patricia squeezed my hand so hard I thought my bones would crack, both of us trying to hold together what was left of our shattered world. I was 68 now, living alone in the same 2-story house in Portland, Maine, where Michael grew up. Patricia had passed 3 years after Michael. The doctors said it was her heart, but I knew better. A person can only carry so much grief before something inside them just gives up. The house felt too big for one person, full of echoes and memories, but I couldn't bring myself to leave. This was where Michael learned to walk, where he'd scraped his knee falling off his bike, where he'd sat at that same kitchen table doing homework while complaining about algebra. My daily routine had become predictable, almost mechanical. Wake at 6, coffee, check the news, take my medications, the blood pressure pills, the cholesterol medication, all the little reminders that I was getting old. Tuesdays and Thursdays I volunteered at the community center, teaching woodworking to kids who reminded me painfully of Michael at that age. Weekends I spent with my daughter Sarah and her family, watching my grandkids grow up, seeing flashes of Michael in their faces that made my chest tight. But lately, something had felt off. It started small. 3 weeks ago, I found the gate to my backyard open one morning. I'd been certain I'd locked it the night before. I always did, had done so religiously for years. I blamed my memory, made a mental note to be more careful. Then it happened again. And again. Each time, nothing was missing, nothing disturbed, just that gate standing open like an invitation. Then came the phone calls. The first one came on a Tuesday evening. I answered, heard breathing on the other end, and then the line went dead. Wrong number, I told myself. But they kept coming, always at odd hours. 10 at night, 6 in the morning, once at 3 in the afternoon while I was watching the game. Never any words, just that breathing. And then silence. I mentioned it to Sarah when she came by for Sunday dinner. "Dad, you should call the police," she'd said, her face creased with worry. She'd inherited her mother's concerned frown. "This sounds like harassment." "It's probably nothing," I'd told her, not wanting to worry her. "Just some kids playing pranks." But I didn't believe that. Something in my gut told me this was different. The flowers appeared 2 weeks ago. I'd gone out to get the newspaper. Yes, I still got the physical paper, Some Habits Die Hard. And there they were on my front step. White lilies, the same flowers we'd put on Michael's casket. No note, no card, just the flowers wrapped in plain brown paper. My hands had shaken as I picked them up. Who would do this? Who would know? I'd thrown them away immediately. But the image haunted me. Those white petals, so pristine and innocent, felt like a message I couldn't decode. Sarah had noticed I was on edge. "Dad, you're not sleeping well," she'd observed last Sunday. "You've got circles under your eyes. Are you taking your blood pressure medication?" I'd lied and told her I was fine. How could I explain this creeping dread that had taken root in my chest? How could I tell her that sometimes, late at night, I felt like someone was watching the house, that I'd taken to checking all the locks 3 times before bed, that I'd started keeping the baseball bat Michael used in high school next to my bedroom door? Then came last night. I'd been asleep, dreaming about something I couldn't remember now. The clock read 3:07 a.m. when the knocking started. Not frantic pounding, not timid tapping, just steady, measured knocking. Knock, knock, knock. My heart hammered as I pulled on my robe and grabbed the bat. I crept downstairs, every instinct screaming at me to call 911, but something made me look through the peephole first. The porch light illuminated the figure standing there, and my blood turned to ice. It was Michael. Same height, same build, same way of standing with his weight on his left foot. Same jacket he'd worn, the brown leather one I'd saved in my closet upstairs because I couldn't bear to give it away. The figure knocked again, and then spoke. "Dad, I'm sorry it took so long. I need to tell you the truth." But I had closed my son's casket myself. I had seen his body. I had watched them bury him 15 years ago. I stood frozen behind that door, my breath coming in short gasps, the baseball bat gripping so tightly in my hands that my knuckles had gone white. My mind raced through impossible explanations. Hallucination? Had I finally lost my mind to grief? Was this what a stroke felt like? "Dad, please, I know this is impossible. I know what you're thinking, but I can explain everything." The voice was wrong. That was the first clear thought that cut through my panic. It sounded like Michael. The timbre was right, the slight rasp he'd had from years of smoking in college, but something was off. The cadence, maybe. The way certain words landed. "Go away," I managed to choke out. "I don't know who you are, but go away or I'm calling the police." There was silence. Then, "The treehouse. You helped me build it when I was 9, and I carved my initials wrong, Mikeal instead of Michael. You said it gave it character and we left it. Nobody knows that, Dad, nobody but us." My legs nearly gave out. That was true. That ridiculous misspelling was still there, hidden on the interior wall of the treehouse that I'd never had the heart to tear down. How could anyone know that? I backed away from the door, fumbling for my phone. My hands shook so badly it took 3 tries to dial Sarah's number. It rang once, twice, 3 times before her sleepy voice answered. "Dad, it's 3 a.m, what's wrong?" "Someone's at the door," I whispered. "Someone claiming to be Michael." I heard rustling, her husband Tom's voice in the background. "Dad, listen to me. Do not open that door. We're calling the police right now and we're coming over. Do you hear me? Don't open the door." But the knocking had stopped. I crept back to the peephole. The porch was empty. The police arrived 18 minutes later. I know because I counted every one of them, standing in my living room with all the lights on and the bat still in my hand. Officers Martinez and Chen were professional, thorough. They searched the perimeter, found nothing. No footprints in the light November snow. No signs of forced entry. Nothing. "Mr. Morrison, has anyone been threatening you?" Officer Martinez asked gently. She was young, probably Sarah's age, and had kind eyes that reminded me of my wife. I told them everything. The open gate, the phone calls, the flowers, the figure at the door. When I mentioned the treehouse detail, Chen and Martinez exchanged glances. "Sir, who else knew about that carving?" Chen asked. "Just me and Michael. And Patricia, my late wife. But she's been gone 12 years. Could your son have told anyone? A friend, girlfriend, maybe written it in a journal?" I thought about it. Could he have? I suppose it's possible. They took my statement, promised to increase patrols in the neighborhood, and left as dawn was breaking. Sarah and Tom arrived 10 minutes after the police departed, Sarah pale and frightened, immediately pulling me into a hug. "Dad, you're staying with us tonight," she said. No arguments, but I didn't go. Once they left, promising to check on me every few hours, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee and forced myself to think clearly. The fear was still there, cold and heavy in my chest. But beneath it, something else was growing. Anger. Someone was using my dead son's memory against me. Someone was playing the cruelest game imaginable, and they'd made a mistake. They'd given me information. The treehouse carving meant they'd either been told about it or had access to it themselves. That narrowed things down. I pulled out a legal pad and started writing. Everything I could remember about Michael's last months, his friends, his girlfriend Emma, who'd moved to California after the funeral and never returned, his cousin David, who'd been close to him, his therapist, Dr. Reynolds, who might have notes. Then I made a second list. Everyone who'd been in my house in the last year, the plumber who'd fixed my sink, the teenager next door who mowed my lawn, the hospice nurse who'd stayed with Patricia those last weeks, though that had been years ago. By noon, I had a plan forming. First, I needed to secure my house better. Cameras, maybe. New locks, definitely. Second, I needed to find out who knew about that treehouse. And third, and this made my jaw clench with determination, I needed to figure out what they wanted, because people don't play these games without a reason, and whatever that reason was, I would find it. Monday morning, I walked into Portland Police Department's main precinct and asked to speak with a detective. The desk sergeant, a thick-necked man with a grey mustache, looked me over skeptically. "What's this regarding, sir?" "Someone is impersonating my deceased son. I believe it's connected to fraud or extortion, and I have new information." That got his attention. 30 minutes later, I sat across from Detective Linda Walsh, a sharp-eyed woman in her early 50s with greying blonde hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. I told her everything again, more calmly this time, laying out the timeline methodically. She listened without interrupting, taking notes in a neat shorthand. "Mr. Morrison, I'll be honest with you," she said when I finished. "Without a direct threat or demand for money, there's limited action we can take legally. But what you're describing fits a pattern we've seen before, long con setups targeting elderly individuals through emotional manipulation. I'm not senile, Detective." "I didn't suggest you were." Her voice was firm, but not unkind. "These people are professionals. They research their targets extensively. The treehouse detail suggests they've either spoken with someone close to your son or have accessed personal records somehow. Do you still have your son's belongings?" "Most of them. Boxes in the attic. Some furniture, his old journals." "I'd suggest going through them carefully. Look for anything missing or disturbed. Also, I want you to document everything from this point forward. Photos, recordings, if possible, written logs with timestamps. If this person makes contact again, try to engage them enough to get information, but don't put yourself at risk." She handed. That afternoon, I called a security company and had them install 3 cameras, front porch, backyard, and driveway. The technician, a chatty young man named Brad, spent 2 hours setting everything up and showing me how to check the footage on my phone. "You'll get alerts whenever there's motion," he explained. "You can adjust the sensitivity so it doesn't ping you every time a squirrel runs by." After he left, I climbed up to the attic. I hadn't been up here in months, maybe longer. Dust motes danced in the light from the small window as I navigated between boxes labeled in Patricia's neat handwriting. Michael, high school. Michael, college. Michael, personal. I opened the personal box first. His journals were there, 4 leather-bound notebooks he'd kept sporadically through his 20s. I'd never read them before. It felt like a violation. But this was different now. I spent the next 3 hours reading my dead son's private thoughts, tears streaming down my face. He'd written about his struggles with depression, his complicated relationship with Emma, his fears about the future. And there, in the 3rd journal, dated about 6 months before he died, I found something that made my blood run cold. "Dad's been acting weird about the treehouse, keeps checking it when he thinks I'm not looking. Asked me if I'd been up there lately. I told him no, which was true. Haven't been up there in years. Makes me wonder if someone else has. Found the padlock broken last week but didn't tell him. Didn't want to worry him. Probably just neighborhood kids. Someone had been accessing our treehouse back then. Someone had known about it 15 years ago, possibly seen the carving. Michael had known and hadn't told me. I was still processing this when my phone buzzed with an alert from the security camera. Front porch motion detected. I pulled up the app with shaking hands. The footage showed a man, mid-30s, average height, wearing that same brown leather jacket, walking up my porch steps. He looked directly at the camera, and I felt my stomach drop. It wasn't just someone who looked like Michael. The resemblance was uncanny, almost surgical in its precision. Same nose, same jawline, same way of tilting his head slightly to the left. He held up a piece of paper to the camera. On it, written in black marker, "I know you're investigating. We need to talk. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., the treehouse. Come alone, or you'll never know the truth about what really happened." Then he turned and walked away. I saved the footage immediately and sent it to Detective Walsh with shaking fingers. Her response came within minutes. "Do not go alone. We'll set up surveillance." But as I sat there staring at that frozen image of a man who looked impossibly like my dead son, I knew I would go, because now this wasn't just about stopping a con artist. This was about finding out what had really happened in that treehouse 15 years ago. Tuesday afternoon arrived too quickly. Detective Walsh had her team in position, 2 plainclothes officers in an unmarked van down the street, another posing as a jogger in the park behind my house. I wore a wire taped to my chest, the cold metal a constant reminder of how surreal this had become. At 1:55 p.m., I walked into my backyard. The November air was crisp, the sky a hard, clear blue. The treehouse looked exactly as it always had, weathered wood and rope ladder, the place where my son had spent countless summer afternoons, pretending to be a pirate, an astronaut, an explorer. I climbed the ladder slowly, my 68-year-old joints protesting. At the top, I found him waiting. Up close, the resemblance was even more disturbing. He'd done something to his face. Subtle things I couldn't quite identify. Makeup? Surgery? The effect was like looking at a photograph of Michael that had been slightly distorted. "Mr. Morrison." His voice was careful, controlled. "Thank you for coming." "Who are you?" I kept my voice steady. "And how dare you desecrate my son's memory like this?" He held up his hands in a placating gesture. "My name is Daniel Reeves, and I know this is horrifying for you, but I need you to understand. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here because 15 years ago I made a terrible mistake, and I've been trying to make it right." "What mistake? What are you talking about?" Daniel's expression shifted, something genuine breaking through the facade. "I was there the night Michael died. I was the one who found him." The treehouse seemed to tilt. I grabbed the wooden railing for support. "Michael died in a car accident. Single-vehicle collision on Route 302. The police said what they were told to say." Daniel's voice dropped. "But your son didn't die in that accident, Mr. Morrison. He staged it, and I helped him." "That's insane. I identified his body. You identified someone's body. Someone who looked enough like him in that burned wreckage. Someone Michael and I—" He stopped, his face twisting with old guilt. "We were involved in something bad. Something that got out of control. Michael was desperate to disappear, and I was young and stupid enough to help him." "Where is he then?" My voice was shaking with rage. "If he's alive, where the hell is my son?" Daniel reached into his jacket, and I tensed, but he only pulled out a photograph. It showed a man, maybe 40, with a beard and different hair. But the eyes— God, those eyes looked like Michael's. He's been living in Costa Rica under a different name. He wanted to come back, wanted to explain, but he couldn't. The people he was running from, they're still looking for him. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed insistently. Detective Walsh, texting. "2 vehicles approaching. Unknown license plates. Get out now." Everything happened fast. Daniel's head snapped toward the sound of car doors slamming in my driveway. His face went white. "They found me," he whispered. "Jesus Christ, they found me." Who? Who found you?" But he was already moving, scrambling down the ladder. I followed as quickly as my old body would allow. In my driveway, 2 black SUVs had blocked in my car. 4 men in dark suits emerged, and the one in front, tall, silver-haired, expensive-looking, smiled at me with all the warmth of a shark. "Mr. Morrison, I'm so sorry to intrude. My name is Lawrence Garrett. I'm an attorney, and I'm here representing certain parties who have an interest in Mr. Reeves." "I've called the police," I said, though my voice sounded thin even to my own ears. "Oh, I'm sure you have. But you see, Mr. Reeves here has something that doesn't belong to him. He's been telling stories, making claims, stirring up old tragedies. That's very distressing behavior, don't you think?" Daniel was backing toward the fence, looking trapped. The men moved to flank him. "Don't do this," Daniel said. "Morrison deserves to know the truth." Garrett's smile never wavered. "There is no truth to know. Michael Morrison died 15 years ago. This man is a con artist playing on a grieving father's hopes. We've been tracking him for months. He's done this before to other families." He turned to me, and his voice became gentle, almost paternal. "Mr. Morrison, I understand how much you want to believe, but continuing this investigation will only bring you pain. Mr. Reeves needs psychiatric help, not police involvement. If you drop this matter now, we'll ensure he gets the treatment he needs. If you don't—" He paused meaningfully. "Well, we'd hate to see your daughter Sarah face any difficulties. She has such a lovely family. Those children of yours, Emily and Jacob, isn't it? Beautiful kids." The threat was clear as glass. My chest tightened, rage and fear warring inside me. Detective Walsh's voice crackled in my ear. "Units moving in. Keep them talking." But Garrett was already moving his men back toward the SUVs, dragging Daniel with them. "Think carefully, Mr. Morrison. Some truths aren't worth the price." They were gone in seconds, leaving only tire tracks in my driveway and the sour taste of fear in my mouth. The police arrived 4 minutes too late. They took statements, put out alerts for the vehicles, but I knew it was futile. These were professionals, connected people. That night, Sarah called, frantic. Someone had tried to access her bank account. Someone had called Tom's office asking questions about their address, their children's school. "Dad, what's happening?" Her voice cracked with fear. "The police said it's connected to your case." "I'm going to fix this," I told her. "I promise you, I'm going to fix this." But after I hung up, I sat in my darkened living room, the weight of their threat pressing down on me. I'd thought I was ready for this fight. I'd thought I could handle whatever came. I'd been wrong, and now my family was in danger because of my investigation. For 3 days, I did nothing. I watched my security cameras, took my medications, tried to sleep, but mostly failed. Sarah called every few hours, and I could hear the strain in her voice. Tom had hired a security consultant to watch their house. My grandchildren's school had been notified to be extra vigilant, all because I'd wanted answers. On the 3rd night, I stood at my bedroom window, looking out at the treehouse silhouetted against the moonlight, and I felt something shift inside me. The fear was still there, cold and heavy. But beneath it, something harder was forming. They'd made a mistake. They'd threatened my family, thinking it would make me back down. They'd forgotten that sometimes threatening a man's family doesn't make him retreat. Sometimes it makes him very, very dangerous. The envelope arrived on Friday, delivered not by mail but slipped under my door sometime in the early morning hours. My security cameras showed nothing. Whoever left it knew exactly where the blind spots were. Inside was a cashier's check for $50,000 and a typed letter on expensive stationery. "Mr. Morrison, please accept this as compensation for your distress. Consider it a settlement for the emotional damage caused by Mr. Reeves's cruel impersonation. All we ask is that you sign the enclosed release form and cease any further investigation into this matter. This is a generous offer made in good faith. Your family's safety and peace of mind are surely worth more than pursuing a dead-end investigation into a tragic accident that occurred 15 years ago." A release form was paper-clipped to the back, full of legal language that essentially said I agreed Michael had died in 2010, that Daniel Reeves was a con artist, and that I would take no further action. $50,000. Enough to help Sarah with the kids' college funds, enough to fix up this old house, enough to make everything go away. I stood at my kitchen counter, the check in my hand, and felt nothing but cold, crystalline clarity. They thought I could be bought. I took a photo of both documents, emailed them to Detective Walsh, then carefully tore the check into small pieces and flushed them down the toilet. The release form I fed through my paper shredder. Within an hour my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Mr. Morrison. It was Garrett's smooth voice. I trust you received our offer. I did. And? Go to hell. There was a pause. When he spoke again, the gentleman's facade had cracked slightly. You're making a very foolish decision. That was genuine money, Mr. Morrison. The next offer won't be as friendly. I don't want your money. I want the truth about my son. Your son is dead. Accept it and move on, old man, before you lose what family you have left. Is that another threat, Mr. Garrett? It's a reality check. His voice hardened. You're playing a game you don't understand with people who have resources you can't imagine. Daniel Reeves is mentally ill. He's told these stories before, destroyed other families with false hope. We're trying to protect you from making a devastating mistake. Then let me talk to him. Let me hear his story without your interference. That's not possible. Mr. Reeves is currently receiving psychiatric care in a private facility, for his own protection and yours. You're holding him prisoner. Garrett laughed, cold and sharp. We're preventing him from causing more harm, but I can see you won't listen to reason. Just remember, Mr. Morrison, we tried to do this the easy way. The line went dead. I sat there for a long moment, then called the one person I knew who might understand. Frank Delacroix had been my friend since high school, 60 years of shared history. He'd been a defense attorney before retiring, knew how powerful people operated, and had never lied to me once in all those decades. He arrived at my house within the hour, listened to everything, examined the documents I'd photographed. Jesus, Bill, he said finally, using the nickname only my oldest friends still used. You've kicked a hornet's nest. I know. Do you? Because these people, this Garrett character and whoever he represents, they don't make empty threats. That check was real money. That's unusual. Usually these things are just intimidation. The fact that they offered actual payment means they're worried about something. About what Daniel might tell me. About what Daniel might prove. Frank leaned forward, his weathered face serious. If your son really did fake his death, there would have been accomplices. Police reports would have been filed, possibly falsified. Evidence would have been manipulated. That's multiple felonies, Bill. Statutes of limitations on some of them might still be active. If someone important was involved in helping Michael disappear, they'd want it buried, permanently. Exactly. Frank stood, paced to my window. But here's what bothers me. Why now? Why would Daniel surface after 15 years? Why risk everything to tell you this story? That question had been eating at me too. Maybe guilt? Maybe. Or maybe something changed. Maybe whoever Michael was running from found him, and Daniel is trying to use you as leverage. Or maybe... Frank turned back to me. Maybe Michael is already dead. Really dead this time, and Daniel is trying to make amends before it's too late. The thought hit me like a physical blow. What if Michael had been alive all these years, and I'd missed my chance to see him again? Frank saw my expression, and his voice softened. I'm not saying that to be cruel, Bill. I'm saying you need to be prepared for any outcome. But if you're going to keep pushing this, you can't do it alone. Sarah's already in danger because of me. So let me help. I've still got contacts in the legal world. I can make quiet inquiries, find out who Garrett really represents, maybe track down where they've taken Daniel. He paused. And there's someone else you should talk to. Emma Carlyle, Michael's girlfriend. She moved away after the funeral. She moved to Sacramento. She's a nurse practitioner now, married with 2 kids. I know because I helped her mother with an estate issue last year, and Emma came back for the funeral. She asked about you and Sarah. My heart rate picked up. You think she knows something? I think if Michael was planning to fake his death, he might have told the woman he loved. Or she might have noticed things others didn't. Either way, she might have information. That evening, with Frank's help, I composed an email to Emma. I kept it brief, explained what was happening without going into full detail, asked if she'd be willing to talk. I didn't expect a response. She replied within 2 hours. Mr. Morrison, I've been waiting 15 years for someone to ask the right questions. Call me. Emma's voice on the phone was older, wearier than I remembered, but still held that same gentle strength that had drawn Michael to her. He told me 3 weeks before it happened, she said without preamble. He said he'd gotten involved with some people through his work at the investment firm, that he'd discovered something he shouldn't have, and they were going to kill him if he stayed. He asked me to run away with him. My hand tightened on the phone. What did you say? I said no. Her voice cracked. God help me, Mr. Morrison, I said no. I thought he was having a breakdown, that he was being paranoid. He'd been so stressed for months, barely sleeping, jumping at shadows. I told him he needed to see a therapist, not run away to another country. 3 weeks later, they told me he was dead. Did you tell the police any of this? I tried. They said I was in denial, that people often look for complex explanations for simple tragedies. The accident report was conclusive. Single vehicle collision, driver error, case closed. But I never believed it. And when I went to that funeral and looked at that closed casket... She paused. Part of me hoped it was empty. Part of me hoped he'd actually done it, gotten away. Is that terrible? No, I said quietly. It's human. She told me more, about the company Michael worked for, Greystone Financial, a mid-size investment firm that had folded 6 months after Michael's death. About the senior partner he'd been working under, a man named Richard Vance, who'd retired to the Bahamas shortly after. About the police detective who'd handled Michael's case, James Corrigan, who'd taken early retirement the following year. Too many people involved walked away with comfortable endings, Emma said. It never felt right. We talked for over an hour. She promised to send me everything she still had. Emails, text messages, photos from that last month. As we were saying goodbye, she added, Mr. Morrison, if Michael really is alive, tell him I understand now. I wish I'd listened. The next morning, I was in my kitchen reviewing Emma's emails when the doorbell rang. I checked the camera. A woman, professionally dressed, mid-40s, carrying a briefcase. She looked up at the camera and smiled. Mr. Morrison, my name is Helen Garrett. Lawrence is my brother. I'd like to speak with you if I may. Just talk. No threats, no games. Please. Against my better judgment, I opened the door but left the chain on. Say what you came to say. She held up her hands, showing they were empty. May I come in? What I have to tell you is sensitive. Detective Walsh's words echoed in my mind. Document everything. I hit record on my phone's voice memo app before opening the door fully. Helen entered with careful, non-threatening movements. She sat when I indicated a chair, kept her hands visible on the table. First, I want to apologize for my brother's approach. Lawrence has always been heavy-handed, but he's protecting people who deserve protection, Mr. Morrison. Good people who made impossible choices, like falsifying a death report. Her expression didn't change. Like saving a young man's life. Michael discovered that Greystone Financial was being used to launder money for some very dangerous people. People who don't accept loose ends. Your son wasn't paranoid. He was targeted. The accident was supposed to be real. My blood went cold. What are you saying? I'm saying that certain individuals within law enforcement and government decided that the best way to protect Michael was to let everyone, including those dangerous people, believe he really died. It was a sanctioned disappearance, Mr. Morrison. Witness protection without the official paperwork. Then why not tell his family? Why put us through that grief? For the first time, Helen's composure cracked slightly. Because you couldn't know. Your grief had to be real, or the people hunting Michael would have known it was fake. We monitored you for years to make sure no one came asking questions. When they didn't, we assumed Michael was safe. Until Daniel Reeves showed up. Daniel was Michael's handler, the agent assigned to manage his disappearance. He was supposed to maintain distance, but apparently he developed a conscience. Guilty conscience about what was done to your family. Her voice hardened. He's risked everything. Michael's location, his new identity, his safety, because he felt bad for you. Do you understand what that means? It means my son might really be alive. It means you're asking me to walk away. I'm begging you to walk away. For Michael's sake. She reached into her briefcase and pulled out another envelope. There's a letter inside, from Michael. Written 2 years ago, kept in case of exactly this situation. Read it. Then decide. She stood to leave, then paused. My brother may be crude, but he's right about one thing. Some truths carry prices too high to pay. Your son gave up everything so you could stay safe. Don't waste his sacrifice. After she left, I sat with that envelope for a full hour before opening it. The handwriting was Michael's. I'd know it anywhere. Dad, if you're reading this, something has gone terribly wrong. I can't tell you where I am or who I am now. What I can tell you is that I think about you and Mom and Sarah every single day. The night I left was the hardest thing I've ever done. I wanted to say goodbye, wanted to explain, but they said it was impossible. They said you had to believe I was dead or we'd all be in danger. I'm so sorry for the pain I caused. But Dad, please, if someone tells you I'm alive, don't look for me. Don't put yourself at risk. Let me stay dead. It's the only way to keep everyone safe. I love you, Michael. My hands shook as I read it twice, 3 times. The letter could be fake, forged to manipulate me. But something about it felt real, sounded like my son. Helen had left her card. I picked up the phone, started to dial, then stopped. They wanted me to back down. They wanted me to accept this pretty story and stop asking questions. And part of me, the part that just wanted to believe Michael was alive and safe somewhere, wanted to do exactly that. But if Michael was really in witness protection, why hire thugs to threaten my family? Why offer bribes? Why not just have Detective Walsh tell me the truth through proper channels? Something was still wrong with this picture, and I wasn't going to stop until I figured out what. I tore up Helen's card and called Frank instead. I need you to find out everything you can about Richard Vance and Detective James Corrigan, and see if you can locate Daniel Reeves, because I'm done being manipulated. The fear was there, yes, but it was fuel now, burning bright and hot, driving me forward rather than holding me back. They'd made a mistake showing me that letter, because now I knew with absolute certainty that Michael had written something before he disappeared, which meant there might be other things he'd written too, other messages he'd left behind, hidden where only someone who really knew him would think to look, and I knew my son better than anyone. Frank called me 4 days later with information that changed everything. Richard Vance died 8 months ago, heart attack in Nassau, but before he died, he transferred a significant amount of money to a trust, $3 million. Want to guess who the trustee is? Lawrence Garrett. Bingo. And Detective Corrigan. He's not retired in Florida like everyone thought. He's working as head of security for a private military contractor called Blackstone Solutions. Want to guess who their legal counsel is? The pieces were clicking into place with sickening clarity. This wasn't witness protection. No, Frank agreed. This was a cover-up, and I think I know what they were covering up. I pulled old news archives from 2010. 3 weeks after Michael's accident, a financial analyst named Todd Rater was found dead, apparent suicide. He worked at Greystone Financial. 2 months later, another analyst, Kelly Chen, died in a mugging gone wrong. Both had worked directly with Michael on international accounts. They were killing witnesses, and they needed Michael gone too. But here's the interesting part. Michael's death was the only one that looked accidental. The others were sloppy, obvious, like someone was tying up loose ends in a hurry, but with Michael, they took time to do it right. Why? I thought about the letter, about Emma's story. Because someone wanted him alive, someone who had the power to arrange an elaborate disappearance. That's my read too, and I think I know who. Judge Margaret Thornton. She was a federal judge in 2010, close friend of your late wife's family, had jurisdiction over financial crimes. She died last year, but according to her obituary, she'd retired early due to health issues, right after Michael's case. You think she arranged it? I think she was approached by someone, maybe Michael directly, maybe through a lawyer, and she used her connections to fake his death legitimately. Get real police cooperation, real death certificates, real burial. But once it was done, the people who helped her realized they'd created a massive liability. So they've been maintaining the lie ever since, getting richer off whatever they were all involved in. And now Daniel Reeves feels guilty and is trying to expose it. Or Michael is actually dead, and Daniel wants to clear his conscience before these people kill him too. That afternoon I did something I hadn't done in 15 years. I went to the cemetery where Michael was buried. I stood at his grave, looking at the headstone with his name and dates, and I made a decision. I called Detective Walsh. I need your help staging something, and it might get you in trouble with some powerful people. To her credit, she didn't hesitate. Tell me what you need. 2 days later, I held a press conference. Well, not a real press conference, just a Facebook Live video that Frank helped me set up, but I made sure to send the link to Lawrence Garrett, Helen Garrett, and every email address associated with Greystone Financial I could find. I sat in my living room, wearing my best suit, and I told everything. Not speculation, just facts. The timeline of Michael's death, the financial analyst murders that followed, the names of everyone involved, the bribes, the threats, the mysterious letter from my supposedly dead son. I don't know if my son is alive, I said, looking directly into the camera. But I know someone doesn't want me asking that question. Someone with enough power to fake deaths, threaten families, and make problems disappear. So I'm making this public. I'm making it impossible to silence me without making this story bigger. And I'm making a promise. I won't stop until I know the truth. The video went viral faster than I'd expected. Within hours, it had thousands of shares. News outlets started calling. Social media detectives started digging into Greystone Financial. And 12 hours after I posted it, my doorbell rang. This time, it wasn't Garrett or his sister. It was Daniel Reeves, looking thin and exhausted, with a split lip and a black eye. They let me go, he said. The story's too big now. Holding me would raise questions. He met my eyes. I need to tell you everything, Mr. Morrison. The real story, not the one they've been feeding you. I let him in and started recording on my phone. Michael is alive, Daniel said. But he's not in witness protection, and he's not the person you remember. When he discovered what Greystone was doing, he didn't just find evidence, he stole money. $8 million from accounts being used to launder money for a Mexican cartel. He planned to use it to disappear and start over. My world tilted. He stole from a cartel? Judge Thornton was his grandmother's cousin. He went to her, confessed everything, and she made a choice. She could let him face justice and probably get killed, or she could help him disappear. She chose family. She used her connections to stage the accident, but there was a condition. Michael had to give back the money. Did he? Daniel's expression was grim. No, he kept it. All of it. Thornton died thinking he'd done the right thing, that Michael was living quietly somewhere. But he wasn't. He was investing it, growing it, building a new empire. And the people who helped cover up his death, Garrett, Corrigan, Vance, they all got cuts to keep quiet. It's been 15 years of hush money and threats. Where is he now? I don't know. I helped him set up the initial disappearance, but he cut contact with me 10 years ago. The last I heard, he was in Southeast Asia. But Mr. Morrison? Daniel leaned forward. Your son isn't a victim. He's not a hero who discovered corruption. He's a thief who stole from murderers and let good people die to cover his tracks. Todd and Kelly, they were killed because the cartel thought they were in on the theft, and Michael knew that would happen. He knew, and he ran anyway. The room spun. I grabbed the edge of the table to steady myself. Why are you telling me this? Because I've lived with this for 15 years, and I'm done. Because you deserve the truth, even if it's ugly, and because... His voice broke. Because I was there when we staged the accident. The body in that car, the one you identified as Michael. It was a homeless man we paid $5,000 to be a stand-in. He thought it was just for photos. We drugged him and burned the car with him inside. I couldn't breathe. You murdered someone. Yes. Daniel's face was white. And I've been paying for it every day since. That's why I came forward. Not guilt about you losing Michael. Guilt about taking an innocent life. And guilt that your son is the one who planned it all. After Daniel left, I sat in silence for hours. The recording was on my phone. Confession to murder. Conspiracy. All of it. I could destroy everyone involved with a single upload. But my son, my Michael. He wasn't a victim, he was the architect of it all. Detective Walsh arrived at my house at dawn, accompanied by 2 FBI agents. They'd been monitoring the situation since my video went public, and Daniel had turned himself in an hour after leaving my house. Mr. Morrison? The lead agent, a sharp-eyed woman named Torres, said gently. We need your statement, and we need that recording. I gave them everything. The video, Daniel's confession, Emma's emails, Frank's research findings. They listened without interrupting. We've been investigating Greystone Financial for years. Torres admitted. Money laundering, cartel connections, multiple murders. But we could never prove the connection. Your video and Daniel's confession just gave us everything we needed. What about Michael? Torres's expression was carefully neutral. If he's alive, we'll find him. But Mr. Morrison, you should know, if we locate your son, he'll face charges for theft, conspiracy to commit murder, and fraud. The death penalty is possible given the cartel involvement. I understand. Over the next 3 weeks, everything unraveled spectacularly. Lawrence Garrett was arrested at his office. The FBI seized his files, found 15 years of payoff records, emails coordinating the cover-up, evidence of the trust fund from Vance that had been used to pay bribes. He tried to cut a deal immediately, offering to testify against everyone else. It didn't help him much. He got 25 years. Helen Garrett was arrested 2 days later. She'd been the one managing the operational details, coordinating between the various conspirators. Her legal expertise had made her invaluable to maintaining the fiction. She got 18 years. Detective Corrigan was extradited from his Caribbean island and charged as an accessory to murder. He'd been the one to falsify the police reports, destroy evidence, and identify the homeless man's body as Michael. He got 30 years. The Greystone Financial scandal exploded across national news. It turned out the company had been laundering money for multiple criminal organizations, and Michael's theft had actually triggered a gang war that had left 17 people dead in Mexico. The fallout was massive. Other financial firms were investigated, banking regulations tightened, careers destroyed. The homeless man Daniel and Michael had murdered was identified as Thomas Clay, a 52-year-old veteran who'd fallen on hard times. His sister came forward, grieving a loss she'd thought was natural but was actually murder. The FBI exhumed the grave where Michael was supposedly buried. The casket contained Thomas Clay's remains, DNA confirmed. My son's actual grave had been empty all along. 6 weeks after my video, the FBI found Michael. Not in Southeast Asia or Costa Rica or any of the exotic locations I'd imagined. He was in Vancouver, Canada, living under the name Marcus Preston. He'd used the stolen money to build a successful real estate development company. He had a wife who didn't know his real identity. 2 children who called him Daddy. A beautiful house on the water. They arrested him at his office. The news showed him being led out in handcuffs, and I watched on TV as my son, older, heavier, successful, looked directly at the camera with no remorse in his eyes whatsoever. He fought extradition for 3 months. Lost. The trial took 6 months, made headlines constantly. Investment analyst faked death to steal from cartel. Read the newspapers. Sarah attended some of the proceedings but couldn't bear to finish. I went to every single day. Michael never looked at me once. The prosecution laid out everything methodically. The theft, the plan to fake his death, his manipulation of Judge Thornton, the murder of Thomas Clay, his knowledge that Todd and Kelly would be killed in the aftermath. They proved he'd continued monitoring the situation for years, had paid bribes through intermediaries, had lived luxuriously while people died for his crimes. His defense tried to paint him as a whistleblower, driven to desperate measures. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. The sentencing hearing was where I finally spoke. Victim impact statement, they called it. I stood 10 feet from the son I'd grieved for 15 years and told him exactly what he'd done to our family. Your mother died believing you were dead, I said, my voice steady and cold. She died heartbroken and destroyed. Sarah lost her brother and her childhood. Your children, your real children, who will now grow up knowing their father is a murderer, lost their father's legacy. And me? I paused. I lost my son 15 years ago, not in an accident, not to witness protection. I lost him to greed and cowardice. Michael finally looked at me then. For just a moment I saw something flicker in his eyes. Regret, maybe. Or just the acknowledgement that he'd been caught. Then it was gone, replaced by that same flat coldness. I'm sorry, he said. The words were hollow, performed, meaningless. The judge gave him life without possibility of parole. An additional 50 years on conspiracy charges, to be served consecutively in a federal maximum security prison. The money, what was left of it after his years of spending, was seized and divided between Thomas Clay's family and the families of the murdered analysts. Michael was led away in chains. I watched until he disappeared through the courthouse doors. I never saw him again. The first year after the trial was strange, hollow. I'd spent months consumed by the investigation, by the need to know the truth, and suddenly it was over. The truth hadn't set me free. It had confirmed my worst nightmare. But slowly, something unexpected happened. I began to heal. Sarah and I grew closer than we'd been in years. We talked honestly about Michael, about our memories, about separating the child we'd loved from the man he'd become. Tom was supportive. The kids were wonderful distractions. Emily asked me once when she was 8, "Grandpa, why did Uncle Mike do bad things?" "Because he made selfish choices," I told her honestly. "And he kept making them until he forgot how to make good ones. But you made good choices," she said with the certainty of a child. "You found the truth even when it was hard." Out of the mouths of babes. Frank and I started a foundation in Thomas Clay's name, helping homeless veterans. It felt like the least I could do for the man who died because my son needed a body double. His sister Martha became a friend. We met quarterly to discuss the foundation's work, and sometimes she'd tell me stories about Tommy. What he'd been like before the war broke him, before circumstances left him vulnerable to predators like Michael. "He was kind," she said once. "That's what I want people to remember. Not how he died, but that he was kind." I made sure the foundation's literature led with that. Emma and I stayed in touch. She'd divorced years ago. Turned out the marriage had been an attempt to fill the hole Michael left. But she'd found peace with it. Her kids were teenagers now, bright and funny. She brought them to Maine one summer, and we all went sailing. She told me it helped, knowing the truth finally. "I spent 15 years wondering if I'd failed him," she said. "Now I know he failed himself." Detective Walsh got a promotion. Her work on the case had broken open multiple criminal conspiracies. She still called occasionally to check on me, and we'd have coffee sometimes. She'd become a friend in the weird way trauma bonds people. As for me, I found purpose in unexpected places. I started speaking at financial institutions about ethics and oversight. Major companies paid me to tell Michael's story as a cautionary tale about what happens when ambition overrides morality. I donated every dollar to the foundation. I sold the house with the treehouse. Too many ghosts. Bought a smaller place near Sarah's family, close enough to be useful but far enough to give them space. The grandkids came over most weekends. I taught them woodworking, told them stories about their grandmother, gave them a history that didn't include Michael's crimes. Life became good in a way I hadn't expected to experience again. Quieter than before, marked by loss, but genuine, real, built on truth rather than comfortable lies. The conspirators didn't fare as well. Helen Garrett tried to maintain her innocence throughout her sentence. Other inmates hated her for helping fake a death while they mourned real losses. She was attacked repeatedly, spent most of her time in protective custody. Last I heard, she'd had a stroke and was in the prison medical ward, partially paralyzed and unable to speak. Karma had its own justice. Corrigan never made it to trial's end. He hung himself in his cell using bed sheets 3 weeks before sentencing. His suicide note was a rambling confession, trying to justify his actions as protecting a promising young man's future. Even in death, he didn't grasp the magnitude of what they'd done. The Greystone financial executives who'd survived the initial investigation faced their own reckonings. Civil suits from investors, criminal charges from the SEC, public disgrace. Several committed suicide. Others went to prison. The company's legacy became a case study in corporate corruption, taught in business schools as an example of what not to do. As for Michael, prison reports filtered back occasionally through Detective Walsh. He'd been attacked twice by cartel-connected inmates seeking revenge. He'd been placed in permanent solitary confinement for his own safety. 23 hours a day in a 6x8 cell, alone with the consequences of his choices. His wife divorced him, changed her and the children's names, disappeared into witness protection to escape the notoriety. His kids would grow up never knowing their father, just like Sarah's kids had grown up with only stories of an uncle who didn't exist. The symmetry was almost poetic. He'd stolen a life to fake his death and lost his real life as punishment. On what would have been Michael's 45th birthday, I visited Thomas Clay's grave instead of the empty plot I'd once thought held my son. I brought flowers, stood in the autumn sunshine, and thanked a man I'd never met for inadvertently giving me the truth. "You deserved better," I said to the headstone. "We all did. But I'm trying to make sure your death means something, that some good came from all this evil." The wind rustled through the cemetery trees, carrying leaves in gentle spirals. It wasn't an answer, but it was peace of a sort. I'd spent 15 years grieving a son who wasn't dead. Now I was mourning him properly, grieving not his death but what he'd chosen to become. That grief was harder, more complex, but at least it was real. And reality, I'd learned, no matter how painful, was always better than the prettiest lie. So that's my story. The son I buried wasn't my son. The son I raised became a murderer, and I had to choose between comfortable lies and terrible truths. What would you do? If someone you loved, really loved, turned out to be someone else entirely, would you want to know? Would you chase that truth no matter the cost? Let me know in the comments, and if this story resonated with you, I have others. Stories about family, betrayal, justice, and the complicated ways we survive heartbreak. Thank you for listening. And remember, the truth might hurt, but lies hurt worse in the end. Subscribe for more true stories that will keep you awake at night.